Hey everybody, Aaron Count, Stage Dynamics, and this is my review of the Langdon Tactical PX4. This, of course, is a review of the PX4 full-size as aftermarket customized by Langdon Tactical. Now, those of you who don't know, I'm pretty much exclusive to Patreon, so my patrons have already seen this video actually a couple of months ago. Releasing it now on YouTube for you guys, and as you know, or you don't know, you're learning now, I release about one video a month on YouTube. Everything else is Patreon, so there's going to be videos on Patreon that you're never going to see on YouTube. If you want to come over and support me on Patreon and see all the videos, great. If you don't, you don't have to. You're still going to get at least a video a month here on YouTube. So, without further delay, here's my review of the Beretta PX4 Langdon Tactical. Storm's been around for, well over a decade, but it never really got a lot of attention. Initial release was kind of a departure for Beretta, getting away from, well, the iconic, infamous, or famous M9. And this was kind of a new generation gun for them that didn't really find a niche. It wasn't a gun that I ever really encountered. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of just forgot about it. It had some unique features to it. I'd shot one when they first came out. The rotating barrel is obviously an advantage, perceived or actual, depending on your shooting style, your shooting ability, where the rotating barrel does help mitigate some of that recoil. But it just wasn't a gun that really, it just wasn't popular for any number of reasons. Now, fast forward to recently, within the past year, earlier this year, 2024, and Langdon decided he was going to customize the PX4. Ernest Langdon, of course, being no stranger to Berettas, decided to do the PX4 Storm in a Langdon package. And what you're getting is kind of a G model. It's got the decocker feature. It's not a safety only, because it is a double action gun. Gray guns trigger, compensator, and it is set up with the Langdon red dot system, RDO system, plate system, which is kind of a carryover from what they use on the Beretta. Because of that, I wasn't going to be doing any drop testing in this video, just because it's a tried and true system. No big deal there, but I was going to be taking a look at the gun and see if maybe with Langdon's touch and the attention that's paid to the PX4, if I could actually start liking the gun. Now, to be completely fair, it's not that I don't like it, it's just that it didn't do anything for me. It didn't provide any advantages for me when I initially tried one, for me to be like, hey, this is a gun that I want to consider. Now, with the Langdon package, you're getting a vantage point compensator. It's a rail-mounted compensator. The light is actually attached to the compensator, and then that attaches to the rail of the gun, which does provide some pretty cool advantages, one of them being it's removable, makes it a lot easier to clean. Now, there is some possibility, perceived possibility, of the comp not being as effective because it's not actually mounted on the barrel or integral to the operation of the firearm. But a lot of the integral comp guns you have out there, they operate the exact same way. So there's a small variance issue there, a potential leakage of gas on the explosive nature of the gun firing, where gases can leak out during the slide operation. That's perceived, though, because if you look at how delayed blowback guns work, most firearms, handguns, semi-automatic handguns work. The bullet actually leaves the barrel before the unlocking process begins. So yes, there is going to be some tolerance gaps there, but you're still going to get an activation of that compensator if the compensator is built well. If you look on the Langdon website, there's plenty of options for this gun. This particular one has the LTT trigger job, which is on the gray gun's trigger. One of the things that stands out about this trigger is the double action mode. That trigger sits very far forward. It has an extreme angle to it, at least to my feel. And initially, I was kind of concerned about that because, and this is just me going back to, coming up, most of my initial training and use was on a Beretta. My first duty gun as a cop was a Beretta, and I've got more rounds on that than probably any other gun, although that's questionable these days because I do shoot other guns in addition to Berettas. Kind of my point being, with the Beretta and double action, that traditional curved trigger, my finger placement is set up for single action. So my double action pull isn't optimal, but it's just that one press. And then as soon as the gun goes into single action mode, my trigger finger is optimally placed. On the gray gun's trigger, I kind of tried to do the same thing, and what I found is when the gun goes into single action, I felt like I needed just a little bit more finger on the trigger. So what I started doing while I was going through the shooting process, getting the kind of that first 500 rounds, is changing placement based on press. So after that first press, I would just reseat the trigger finger. Didn't really mess with my split times or anything like that. It was just a quick adjustment. The interesting thing is it's the first time I've ever had to really do that on a gun. So kind of cool, I guess. A learning experience for me just based on this particular trigger. Now, as far as other features go, like we already talked about, you're getting the Langdon Optin system, which gives us an optic mounting. Different profiles are available, or footprints, I should say. I went with the EPS because that's what Langdon sent me. Of course, for full disclosure, Langdon did send me this gun. I didn't buy it. And it's got a Springer Precision magwell with Springer Precision base pads on the magazines. A word to that, of course, is if you're using PX4 Storm mags, the standard floor plate models will not lock into this gun. But if you use Springer floor plates or extended floor plates, extended magazine capacity floor plates, you're not going to have any issues with it whatsoever. And honestly, I like Springer Precision stuff a lot. This is a very subtle magwell. It's not really a big, bulky, competition size one, but based on hand placement right there, it's the perfect size, at least for me. This is a full-size gun, but sometimes it feels like a compact in regards to actual placement of my hand. So getting into the performance of it, the compensator is fantastic, but there was an issue, and this is just a one-off issue that I encountered, and Langdon messaged me about it and told me, like, hey, there's a heat treat issue with the compensators that went out with the initial gun, so under high volume you may have a compensator deform, which means if you shoot, well, like I do, the compensator is going to start to actually bend. And that actually did start to happen right around 700 rounds because I was running, you know, pretty high. I was going up to the range and burning 300-400 rounds at a time. And that's exactly what happened. The compensator did deform. So I sent that one back. They sent me a replacement, and then I finished everything up. And the replacement compensator, no issues whatsoever. Being able to remove it from the gun is fantastic, but it does create holster issues. One, the PX4 is just not a popular enough gun for there to be a lot of duty holster options. From concealment, I'm using a Filster floodlight, so no issues there. For duty, I'm having to use a Blackhawk Omnivore, which is not a great holster, but it's not a terrible holster either, and it does index to A-style Surefire X300s. So even on the compensator, I'm still able to lock it into that holster, still able to run it from that holster. I'm not having any issues there. The overall performance of the gun, like I talked about, that double action trigger, that extreme angle, I was a little initially concerned with that. After, I'd say, first couple mags, really what I started doing is I would do, you know, 2-3 round strings, and I'd decock holster. So I'm getting that double action pull every single time I come out of the holster, as you should. And after, I'd say, you know, 10-15 reps, I really stopped noticing it. And I started changing my finger placement just based on optimal performance. Of course, it's not going to happen every single time until I get used to it, and it's not a habit I want to develop because of the other double action, single action guns I shoot. And this is the first double action, single action where I've actually felt like I had to do that. And that could be a perceived negative, but my hand size, finger length, placement, gun size relationship may be different than yours. What I will say is this gun is incredibly flat. Even taking the compensator off and just running it, that rotating barrel does provide, I feel like it does provide a significant enough advantage to make it worth it. Now, when comparing this to a regular PX4 Storm without the Gray Guns trigger, without the Langdon trigger job, without the other options, without the red dot mounting, without the Springer Precision kit, it's just not a gun that I'd be particularly interested in, even a G model decocker and all that, just because I don't care for the Beretta trigger that comes with this gun. So it really took Langdon putting their pieces into the gun in order for me to actually like it. As far as the overall performance goes, I didn't have any issues, except for that comp-related issue, which was rectified, and then I didn't have that problem for the next 1,300 rounds of the review. Shooting 115, you're not really going to appreciate it. It is a larger gun, and even though it is kind of a polymer frame, that rotating barrel, and paired with the compensator, paired with the general weight of the gun, because it is a little bit heavier for a polymer gun. 115, you don't really see the results. Shooting 124 and then shooting duty loads like 124, 124 plus P, 147, 147 plus P, that compensator definitely puts the work in it. It definitely brings that muzzle back fast. It's snappy, but it's going to get your sight picture back quick. And that just proves to me the compensator is working. Usually with 9mm, I do worry about double chamber comps. I feel like that second chamber might be there, or the second porting, I should say, might be there for aesthetic purposes or for length purposes. And Vantage does sell a single port as well, I believe, and they make one for the compact version of the PX4 Storm, this being the full size. But if you take a close look at the compensator, some definite attention went into the expansion chamber sizing. Also, the floor. It has a rounded, but it's an oblong rounded effect. And then I've got my forward port is smaller than my rearward port, which I think does help manage those gases a little bit more effectively than if they just stamped, or I should say cut, two same size ports, and one of them is just there for feels. A lot of those double chamber or double ported 9mm comps out there, especially side porting, they may not really have the effect that they could have if they manage the gases better. That doesn't seem to be the case, at least in my experience shooting 2,000 rounds with this particular gun. One thing I've always loved about Berettas is the magazines, and the magazines for the Storm are no different. Running the Springer Precision kits, both standard capacity and extended capacity. Reloading this thing is fantastically easy. It does have a reversible magazine release, which I actually had to do. I had to set it up for a left-handed thumb release because my particular grip caused me to hit the magazine release if I left it set up for a right-handed shooter. I'm perfectly happy going either or, but I generally prefer to leave them on the right. So the only time I ever really switch them over, with guns where you can switch them over, is if I have a grip related issue, because I'm not going to change my grip for one gun. I'm going to use the same grip on every single gun, and some guns, like FN509s or this PX4 Storm, I've got to switch that magazine release over to keep me from hitting the magazine release when I'm actually gripping the gun. Double action, single action trigger press, consistent. Weight's reasonable. It's definitely something that's completely manageable. Depending on which level you get is which kind of pull and reset you're going to get. In single action mode, this gun resets like a single action only. It really does. There's very little uptake and there's very little over travel, and it makes for a very fast gun. When you pair that with compensator plus magazine capacity, you can really get on the gas with this thing and have a lot of fun. I spent a lot of time shooting steel with it, of course putting it on paper, various one-handed, sport hand only, primary hand only, all the normal stuff that I normally do. And it's just a really fun gun to shoot, and I like it a lot. The only issue, I guess, that I have in this particular one is I went with they sent me the RMSC footprint, which means I was kind of stuck with a Holosun EPS. And I just don't like that small of an optic on this size of a gun. I can deal with it, but I would rather have like an RMR size window or an RMR HD or an Acro or something like that. And that's not really necessarily a gripe against the gun. It was just the only kind of issue that I had with the package that was sent to me was that particular footprint, something I definitely want to change out because I want a bigger window. I don't want to go completely ridiculous with it, but is the way that the ejection port sits on this gun, the way the rotating barrel works, you can run pretty much any optic you want on it. You don't have to worry about the optic being too far forward to be sitting over the breech face or anything like that because it doesn't have traditional open top breech face like a lot of guns do. So this, honestly, the PX4 has a lot going for it as far as design and ergonomics. It's just something that's not nearly as appreciated anymore because people have gotten away from double action, single action guns, myself included. Because I don't shoot a lot of double action, single action as much as I used to, because striker fired are just easier, and single action only, even though it's an older technology, also easier to shoot. That being said, this definitely is going into my lineup of double action, single action guns. I still shoot a lot of Beretta. It's a Langdon Beretta, and then I have a single action only Langdon as well, the 92XI. I wish Beretta had done more with the PX4 Storm. I think that as a single action only, it would be a fantastic gun, and there's enough meat on this frame for them to move those safeties down like they did with the 92XI. And I just don't see Beretta doing it anytime soon, unfortunately. But if you're a single action, double action, single action guy, if you're perfectly okay with that, this particular package is fantastic. Of course, you already have a PX4 Storm. You can buy all this stuff, send your slide in, get it milled. All those things can be done. I like the gun a lot. Now, final word, of course, on accuracy. We're not doing the drop test on this. Kind of already talked about that. But is the gun inherently accurate? Well, I zeroed at 25 yards. I'll give you guys a quick look right here. 25 yard, 124 grain gold dot, bench rest supported, 5-round group. So not only does the gun functions great, it's also an accurate and inherently accurate platform based on the shooter's ability. And the only issue I could see you really having with this gun, of course, is going to be holster compatibility. I don't really see this fitting into a duty category for most people just because of the limitations that are often placed on as far as aftermarket accessories and holster options and things like that. But for competition or for carry use, it's easily a flat performing gun. And if you buy it as a package, or you already have an X4 and you just grab the Vantage Point comp, or you throw the Ray Guns trigger in it, or you go for the complete Langdon package, which anytime you're going to buy a Langdon product, just go ahead and just get everything they offer, because that's going to tune the gun to specifications of a guy who knows a little bit about what he's talking about when it comes to shooting guns well and shooting guns fast. If there's anything I don't like about the gun besides the EPS, having to use the RMSC footprint, it's the grip texture that they provided, which is kind of like a kit, kind of like skateboard tape. I'm not actually sure who makes it. On the website, they do offer stippling. I did not get a stippled version, and it is kind of a semi-textured tape, but not super grippy. It's probably better than the PX4 comes factory, but I just generally don't care for those overlay kits or those grip tape kits or those grip kits where it's basically adhesive stickers, if I can avoid it. So it's not terrible. It's not super grippy though, so it's kind of like I would almost rather just stipple the gun myself and not have to worry about it. That would probably be my only other complaint besides having to use the RMSC footprint. Fantastic performing gun. I would highly recommend it if you want a double action, single action that gets away from some of the other traditional guns, with a plethora of available magazine options that are reasonably priced. And for concealed carry, holster options are not going to be a problem. For duty carry, like me, I had to use, or if you want an open carry, you can probably get someone who's making holsters for this. And if you want an actual holster retention, the Omnivore is the only holster I'm aware of right now that is a definitive fit. I have a Beretta 92 from US Duty Gear. This gun does not fit in it. Even though it's same overall profile, similar size to an M9, the compensator offset with the light just kind of prevents it. So my final word on the Langdon take on the Beretta PX4 Storm is it's a fantastic gun, but it is kind of a niche gun. So it might not be something that's going to appeal to you, but I had a ball with it, and I plan on continuing to shoot it quite a bit. Till next time, Patrons, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics, train accordingly.